Before we get started, if you've had an encounter, an experience, or just something unexplainable, shoot me an email with your contact information at the Cryptid Crew Podcast at gmail.com. On this episode of the Cryptid Crew Podcast, I would like to welcome on Outdoorsman from North Alabama, Carl Mansell. Carl, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, Mark. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing well. Tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and what you enjoy doing.
Okay, well, I'm a retiree. I'm fixing to turn 63. I spent 41 years in a pipe shop down in Birmingham, Alabama. But I retired 3 years ago, and during that period of time, I've always hunted and fished, and I bounced around doing that because that's my thing. I just love being in the outdoors.
Yeah, there's a lot of places in Alabama that you can go outdoors and enjoy. That's for sure.
Yep, absolutely.
So from what I understand, you hunt and you fish. Is that correct?
Well, I do. Well, Mark, that'd be a lie. Now, let me be honest with you. I don't, according to my buddies now, I don't fall under a hunter anymore. I consider it a conservationist. I hadn't took a deer in 5 years, and I passed a lot of deer up that the average fella here in the state would knock his lights out. But it's something as you get older, I think the part of killing and taking the animals not near as important as just being out there, Mark.
Right. I agree with you on that. I found myself doing the same thing. When I was younger, I hunted quite a bit. And just over the years, just find myself, I don't know if it's growing softer as I get older or just enjoying, the animals and the outdoors.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. We always, that circle I run in, and all my buddies that I grew up with, from a young adult to a senior citizen now, we say what we go by now is we don't hate them like we used to.
Right.
But anyhow, it's my thing. I enjoy it. I don't do quite as much fishing now, and when I do, I like to do it in like strip pit ponds and small places where you're probably going to get a bite, whatever you throw out there on a rooster tail or whatnot. But I spend a lot of time prepping to hunt. But as far as the actual taking the animal, I don't hardly do it anymore.
Sure. Yeah, I've got two sons that my youngest two sons enjoy hunting and fishing both. So I totally understand. I tell you what, let's just dive right into this. Tell us what opened up your eyes into the world of Bigfoot.
Well, Mark, it kind of built up. Like I said, I hunted down there close to Farmville, Alabama, down there in Lee County for almost 30 years on private land with some family that live in Opelika. And as it dwindled, I started bouncing around, and I got a good friend of mine. He found this guy, I don't know, maybe on one of them land watch or land search things that leases his land. It was an older fella that it was about 230 acres up in what they call Hackleburg, Alabama. And he said, "You want to go in together to lease it?" And I said, "Yeah, let's go lease it." So we went up there and looked at it, and it's, buddy, it's straight up and down. Some of them hollers you can get in there, you don't feel the wind and you don't hear squat. Well, anyhow, we leased it, and there was little things that didn't make any sense building up to what actually happened that one night. We were walking the property lines, looking at that land, and there was a big overhang that I saw that something had got under there and dug it out and marked the piles of dirt dug out. I'm probably 5'11" before I started shrinking. Those piles were dang near as high as I am tall. And but I didn't think nothing about it. I told him, I said, "Jesus, what's been digging this out to get up in there?" And my buddy, right, he said, "Heck, man, I ain't really got a clue." So, we didn't think much about it, and we went around and we walked the boundaries out, learned where the man's land laid. And then not long after that, we come back in there when we decided we were going to set up our spots. So it was just me and him. I had half the place. He had the other half the place. And we were going over there where he was going to put his blinds and stuff in. And that man, when we got off down at the bottom of that big old holler, I said, "You smell that?" I said, "Dude, there's something dead down in here." He said, "Yeah, I smell it." So long story short, this is during the summertime, of course, and the foliage is just thick like a jungle. I kept trying to nose trail what it was, and we got up in there, Mark, and there was a young, like, I can't remember exactly, because this was 10 years ago. I talked to my son about when we had that place. We only kept it 1 year, and it was 10 years ago. And I found it. It was a young 4 or 6 point, and his head had been twisted around like his neck had been broke. And
right.
something had messed with the back end of it. I couldn't tell you if it was a coyote at the time or it could have been coons. But and I told my buddy, I said, "Man, I wonder if he was running and hung his head or something." But anyhow, his neck was twisted around, it was snapped, and we wrote it off. We went on about our business, and we started hunting a little bit in there. And I've hunted. Mark, I've hunted now. I've hunted basically. I hunted everywhere now. Don't get me wrong, but I've hunted from Alabama all the way up to Illinois and Ohio and back. And I've hunted. I go into a place I ain't never laid eyes on, the land nor the people I knew, and I never got what I call the heebie-jeebies. Well, the place we leased, we had to cross a pasture to get to it. This man gave us permission to run his fence line and go up there and enter that property we had. And the property, basically, it was the beginning of a giant holler, and that's all the place really was. And we would park right down inside the wood line just where the trucks would be out of sight. And sometimes I would walk that fence line because the man that had that fence, he had horses in there. And he kept it all clean and pretty all the way around it. And I'd walk outside that fence, and I'd go as far as I could back there, back where I was hunting at, to get to my blind back there. Well,
right.
And for some reason, there was a lot of privet and stuff in there, and it was super thick like a jungle. And I always felt like something was watching me, but I didn't really think much about it. Well, then one morning, I had my little headlamp on, and I was walking down that fence line to get back there to that spot. And you know how you're walking along and your head's bobbing and weaving, and you're just, well, so all of a sudden I stopped and I kind of turned my head to the left and look, and I seen eyes that look about 7 to 8 feet off the ground. And I wouldn't have thought much about it, but the thing about it was, between the eyeballs, heck, it was probably 8 to 10 inches.
Oh, wow. So something large. Yeah,
something. And to begin with, I thought it was one of the dude's horses. Because, it was right there next to that. But anyhow, long story short, whatever it was, I seen them big-ass eyes come down. And they got about a foot or so off the ground. And that thing, I don't know if it spider crawled or military crawled, but whatever it was, it got on out of there.
Right,
well,
right.
And I went on about my business, went and got my blind, did my hunt, come on out. And during this period of time, we had an old trailer that me and my buddy bought, and we called it the Camouflage Turd, AKA the Silicone Express, because we used a whole case of silicone on that thing to stir up. When we were getting up there, we actually took that trailer up there, and we took it down that one logging road that goes through the center of that 230 acres. And there was one little flat spot, and we just basically set it off the edge of the road and leveled it up. We didn't have power. We didn't have water. We didn't have nothing. The only thing we had was battery-operated lanterns that we kept in there. And when it finally got cool, me and my buddy went up there to do a hunt. We were going to spend the night in the trailer. And he was, I can't remember which wife this was, number 3, number 4, I don't know. But anyhow, the only way you could get cell service in there, you had to go back up out of that hole from the trailer and drive your truck up there next to that man's horse pasture on the hill, and you could talk on your phone. So he said, "Well, I'm gonna get up there and I'm gonna call Kathy before I go to bed." I said, "Well, that's fine, that's cool." Well, I got in my bunk and I laid down. I went to sleep, and then he come bumbling. He got in there. Well, as you'll find this out as you get older, Mark, it's hard to sleep at night when you get old. My best sleep is the first couple hours when I lay down, and that's about it. But long story short, he come in, and I woke up just long enough to hear him go get on the other end of the Silicon Express, and he laid down, and I was gone again. And the next thing I know, he's hollering and screaming, and I roll over because I sleep right by the door. Well, I roll over, and I kick that little old lantern on. He's standing there in his dang briefs, nothing but his boxers on, with his pistol pointing at the door, hollering and screaming. He said, "If you come in here, I'm going to shoot." And
so what did he hear vocalizations, or did he hear grunting or growling?
Well, he told me he heard something push its way through all that privet right across from the trailer and walk across right that piece of logging road. He said what it sounded like to him. It slapped the trailer and it was dragging his hands down the side of the trailer. Well, I just basically told him, said, "Man, you done lost your damn mind. Get back in the bed and go to sleep." I said, "There ain't nothing out there." So, he calmed down. He laid down. He went back to bed. And actually, he had a couple of more episodes down in that big old holler he was hunting at. That buddy of mine who helped me lease it. Well, he quit coming. He said, "I'm not going back up there no more." I said, "Well, if you're not going to go back up there no more, can I bring one of our mutual friends up here to hunt a spot?" He said, "Yeah." So what happened? I can't remember. It done got on into the season, and this was when it was starting to get kind of cold and the foliage was coming off. Well, me and my grandson and my buddy Paul went up there to do a hunt. Well,
and what time of the year was this?
This is probably going to be, I'm going to say, Mark, probably sometime in December now.
Okay. And the weather, what was it like?
It wasn't horrible. It was actually, to me, it was comfortable hunting. Might have been getting down around about 40 at night, and the highs were, it was good for a 10-year-old child at the time because that's how old my grandson was.
Okay.
Well, my buddy Paul split off and he went down there to my buddy Stan, and I took my grandson to my stand, and we got in there, and he, like I said, he was 10, and we weren't there in no time. I done seen so many deer in there, it was ridiculous, but I never saw nothing I liked. Well, one come in there, and I had my crossbow set up for him, had it on one of them tripods, and I was trying to coach him through it, and long story short, he shot too soon. Well, I seen it. That's when I was using them lighted knocks that a lot of people use. I seen that lighted knock go back too far behind the rib cage, and I told my grandson, I said, "You gut shot that deer," because I seen the deer hump up. And I said, "But it's okay." I said, "We'll leave it alone. We'll give it a few hours, and then we'll come back and track it." Well, during this time, I went ahead and we were sitting there, recocked the crossbow, put another bolt in there, and it wasn't long after that pretty decent buck rolled up. And because the first one he shot was just a big old slick. But long story short, Mark, I've killed 155 deer with a compound bow. And I don't know how many with a rifle and this and that.
Right.
And I pretty much know when I see that arrow hit a deer, I know whether that deer is dead or not. Well, I watched that second one. He ripped it off, and that buck mule kicked. I watched it go right in behind, front leg, 2 or 3 inches up, 2 and 3 inches behind it, and I slapped him on the back, and I said, "Buddy, you got that one." I said, "I hear you, got you one."
I'm sure 10 years old, he was excited.
Oh, man, what you talking about? He went from the doe being heartbroken when I told him what had happened till on cloud 9. Well, anyhow, long story short, we're sitting there, and it's getting dark. We waited to right about dark, and I told him, I said, "Come on, boy, let's go get that deer." So we got out, man, I got on a blood trail a blind man could follow. And I was following it, and I followed it, and it was on a game trail, too, probably one that they would come in and out on. And it got to a point, there was no blood, there was no nothing. It's like something coming out of there airlifted that thing out of there. Well, we looked a little bit longer, and I said, "Well, I'll tell you what, let's go meet Paul back at the trailer." and see what he may have done. Well, we get back to the trailer, and I hear the four-wheeler coming up through there, and Paul said, yeah. He said, I'm pretty sure I killed a doe. I put a good lick on her. And this is and all this time, this is building up to what happened that night. And I didn't think nothing about it. But anyhow, long story short, I told, it's really hard to get in and out of there. And at the time, we had one four-wheeler up there, and I don't know if you remember them or not, but I bought it down at the deer show a long time ago in 2008, what they called a bad boy buggy.
Right.
Four-wheel drive.
Yes, I do remember those.
Well, I had one of those, and it was where it would hold a charge for a long time because I wasn't using it that much up there. And I couldn't take that off down there, so I told Cooper, I said, Cooper, buddy, said, go in there and cut the lantern on. I said, there's some snacks up in the cabinet. I said, just relax. And I said, I'll be back. Me and Paul will be back here in a little bit. Then we'll go back to look for yours. And so anyhow, he went in there and he got up there and got him a snack, what a typical 10-year-old's going to do. And he sat at the little table, and I closed the door, and I told him, I said, we'll be back in a little bit, buddy. Everything's cool. And we went down there, and sure enough, got down there where Paul had hunted, and he let the air out of that doe. She probably didn't go about 80 yards killed it with his bow. And so we got it, finally drug it up there, drug it out, got it on the four-wheeler. And finally, there's one place you have to navigate so bad that I wouldn't get on the bike with him. I just walked to one point where I could get back on. And we finally got on there, and we come putting out there, and we're coming up that little road right there where the Silicon Express is sitting on the edge of the road. And no more than we got up there and cut that daggum four-wheeler off, Mark. My grandson slung that door open, and that boy was white as a sheet. And I'm thinking, oh, God, what has he done? Has he cut his hand? But, we're not really gun hunters, so there wasn't a gun even in the little trailer. So I'm thinking, has he cut himself? What has he done? But the boy was white as a sheet, and he was in tears. And I said, what's wrong? What happened? And he said, something was out here. I said, what do you mean something was out here? He said, I heard something come up. And he said, then it started slapping in the trailer, and then it started rocking the trailer, and everything in the trailer was falling out of the cabinets, and everything was falling off the table. And he said, finally, I run over and got on the bed and got in the corner and went hollering and screaming. He said, and all of a sudden, it just got quiet. And he said he heard whatever it was. It just, it wandered back off in the woods from where it came from. So now this is a 10-year-old. And
I can imagine a 10-year-old that would be extremely intense and terrifying as well.
Exactly. I mean, it traumatized him. You can look at a child and see when they're BSing you. I mean, in this kid, in his mind, it was genuine. Whatever happened, it was there. But, so anyhow, I calmed him down, and we had a little skinning rack. We hung Paul's doe up there, and we gutted hers, and then we went back, and me and Paul looked for an hour, and I to this day, I swear something picked that deer up and walked off with it because there was no more. It was pouring too much blood out both sides of it, and it was right on a game trail. But anyhow,
let me ask you this, Carl. Did you see any tracks or any broken limbs that was out of place, or any trackway of any sort?
See, that's it. So we were right on the edge of an old logging road, and it was as hard as it could be, and the trailer door pretty much opened right off the edge of it. And I didn't really see anything out of the ordinary, but what I was getting to right after he told me about that it rocked the trailer so much it was making it tilt enough for everything to fall off, everything out of the cabinets. So the following weekend when I went back up there, I took that bad boy buggy, and that son's gun, if I remember right, I want to say it was a 48 bolt one, and I think that whole deal weighed like 800 pounds, Mark. And I'm a big guy, and I worked in a plant where you had to do physical work all your life. So what I've done, it's got that back seat on it you can flip down to make it like a bed. I pulled up as close as I could to the edge of the Silicon Express, and I jumped up on that on that little flatbed that you can make when you drop that seat on the back end of it. And I got
Mm-hmm.
up there and I got against that daggum trailer where I could grab the top lip. And I tried with everything I could to rock it, and I couldn't do shit with it.
Well, it would take something with tremendous strength
Exactly.
to do something like that. Yes.
You know, and if I thought, you know, and if it would have, that's what's crazy too. If it would have even been a bear, with the bear standing up on his hind legs and working that trailer, he would have. It was called the Camouflage Express or Camouflage Turtle. We camouflaged it. He would have scratched all that paint off with his claws, working them two front paws on it.
Right.
So,
well, you talk about this. This is not the first time I have heard, of something like that where you've had a camper being shaken or tent being shaken. But there's been also, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I was going to mention this too on the BFRO website, Russellville, which I guess Franklin County is near Marion County. There were two hunters there that heard possible vocalizations and watched something tall and dark walk off back in 2007 while they were hunting their lake. I think it's Lake Elliott, I believe. But yeah, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I was just going.
No, good, man. You're good. But no, what I was going to say, after that was pretty much over with up there. We didn't go back, and that's when I dove off into the YouTube stuff. And if you actually go and look under Alabama Bigfoot sightings and stuff, right up there in Hackleburg, on somebody's horse farm, they said they found some gigantic beds on the backside of one of their pastures where they would keep their horses. They said something was going on back there because when they moved the horses from one pasture to the other, they wouldn't go back to that back one. So they went back there to investigate, and they said they found what looked like gigantic beds of something extremely heavy had laid there, and it stunk to high heaven.
Right.
But anyhow, after that, yeah, I kind of feel like there is something out there. I mean, because like I said, they say there's no bear here in Alabama, right?
I've seen a bear. Yes, I know there is. Absolutely.
I got a dozen pictures up here where I'm at right now in my cabin with a big black bear flipping 350-pound feeders like it wasn't nothing when he was hanging around here in September.
Right. And a bear's not going to shake a camper trailer. How big is the camper trailer? Do you know footage?
It was your typical 70-something model Prowler camper, I think is what it was. I think it was a Prowler. We bought it off Craigslist and brought it home and gutted it and fixed it up, made it where it's decent enough you could stay a couple of guys in it. So, I mean, best I can remember, Mark, like I said, I'm 5'10", 5'11". I could probably walk up to the edge of it and maybe get my fingers on that little bitty rib where they put together between the wall and the roof.
Right.
But anyhow, it was something. It's like I said, it's been a decade now, has passed, and but the thing about it is, only up there in that area, I had that feeling like there was something there, something watching you. I hadn't had it anywhere else. I said, I'm up here in Winston County. I'm within a quarter of a mile of the Bankhead Forest right now. And I've been up here. Me and my boys had this place for 3 years now. Hadn't seen nothing out of the ordinary. I still in the back of my mind, I think it's very possible. And just when the government tells me something ain't real, I'm probably going to believe the opposite anyway.
Right. Sure. Yeah. There's just too many. There's too many reports, too many witnesses, and a lot of them hang on to their story for years and years and don't even report it because they're too afraid of being ridiculed until they may hear of someone else telling a story or someone brings something up and then they'll share it.
Yeah, but I got one little tidbit I can give you. It's not up there in Hackleburg, but it's right here in Walker County. It's the club I hunted over here. I don't know if you're familiar with Walker County, but there's town of Carbon Hill. You got Nauvoo, but anyhow,
Yes.
the club that I'm going to meet the boys tonight here in just a little while to hang out with them. I used to hunt the club with them. We was there one night. You know, we're all grown adults. We'd all had a few drinks, and this was just a couple years ago. And some of the boys come in really late. They wanted to go put corn out on some of their corn piles since it's legal now. So I said, "Yeah, man, we'll ride with you." So we're loaded up in the Jeep Cherokee, and they got their beers, and we got a back end full of corn, and we're taking this stuff out to put it out. And it was my brother, my nephews, and one other person. Well, long story short, I ain't gonna lie to you. Now I had a few drinks that night, and I always like to mess with my nephew and them. Well, long story short, they was down there putting corn out on one of their little spots, and I'd walked all the way back up to the main road because it was one of them nights. It was a full moon. I was just gonna wait for them to come out, and I said, "Well, I'm gonna mess with them boys." So I've ever since that happened up there in Hackleburg, man fair for about a year and a half, Mark. I couldn't get enough YouTube videos and stuff, just trying to to make sense of all of it. Anyhow, long story short, I said, well, I'm gonna let out a howl. So I took a long deep breath. I let out some kind of scream howl thing, and my nephew standing there by his brother, my brother. Did you hear that? And my brother grinned. He said, "You know who that is? That's your uncle." But what was crazy, right after I got through hollering, something way back there off in them woods screamed right back at me.
So y'all had a vocalization reply to yours.
Yes. And the thing about it was, I'd met a couple of people that were born and raised up there, and one old boy told me that they migrate through here. They come through every 2 to 3 years. And I'm thinking, well, maybe so. But when and then I met another boy up there. He claimed him and his brother was hunting during bow season, and they hunt together within sight of each other out of the climbers. And one walked up and grabbed the bottom of his brother's climber, and it scared that boy so bad. He said that it actually mentally messed him up.
Oh,
So
I could imagine.
The stories are out there. They're out there, Mark, without a doubt.
Right. And I was going to ask you that as well, if you had heard of any other encounters or sightings, but it sounds like they're plentiful up that way. And I'm going to do an episode here shortly on the Alabama white thing. And you had brought up Walker County, and there were 2 sightings of a white bipedal creature near the town of Kansas. Have you heard of it in Walker County?
I know exactly. If you drive straight on out downtown Carbon Hill, going out towards, I can't remember which way it's headed out, going away from 22, Mark, headed the other way. As soon as you get out of Carbon Hill city limits for a good ways, you'll see the sign of Kansas.
Right. But, there's a sighting it was reported in 2010, but it happened in 1990. So this person waited 20 years to tell anybody, just like we were talking about earlier.
Well, I work with a buddy out there at the plant, Mark. He was raised up in Blount County, Alabama, up there around where Banger Cave, that area, if you're familiar with that.
Yes.
And he swears up and down when he was squirrel hunting when he was a young boy with his daddy, one of those white things climbed out of a tree, and he watched. And I mean, and this old boy, he's a straight up Christian. I mean, he's as good as they come. And I know you can look in his eyes, and in his mind, he's seen that white thing when he was. But anyhow,
how old was he when he saw it? Do you know? Or how long ago was it?
Oh, this has been a long time ago. He's probably, I'm fixing to be 63. I would put Ray around probably getting maybe around 60. So I think he was like 12 or 13 when he was squirrel hunting because there was a lot of family owned a lot of land up in that area at the time. But anyhow, I got a friend up here that's got a good friend that you pull out of my gate and head back towards 195, just 2 or 3 miles down here, there's something called, I want to say it's Kaiser's Bottom, but there's some bottom up here. There's a guy, which I hadn't had the opportunity to meet him yet, but he's got these things cataloged. Males, females, different color phase ones, that they live in that bottom that his family owns, what I have been told.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah, so if something happens and I ever get a chance to meet this cat, I'll reach out to you if I can get y'all hooked up.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. I would love to hear that story.
But anyhow, that's pretty much all of it in a nutshell, Mark.
Right. Yeah, that's like I said, that area up there's had quite a bit of activity for years and years, and of course you've heard it firsthand and seen it firsthand as well. Let me ask you I'm just going to ask you this: what do you think we're dealing with? Is it an undiscovered primate or what?
Honestly, I don't. It's hard to, that's a gray area, and you got to be real careful how do you go stepping in that. Because because it would rewrite everything since the beginning of time if it ends up being like something like a missing link or possibly a spinoff of early man or even of some kind of a primate. Mark, I ain't never really looked at it that hard.
Right.
I just loved it. There for a while. I was just, after that episode, what happened up there to my grandson, for the next year and a half, 2 years, anything and everything that had to do with it, I was listening to it. And because some of the stuff that went on up there was in the same story some of these other people were telling.
Right. And you can go down a rabbit hole when you start looking and researching for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think it's just an undiscovered primate of some sort. That's just not, just the population's not very big, enough to reproduce, but just, but not cataloged, I guess is the right.
Right. And, and on the logical side, when I think about this, and I have to agree with all the skeptics too. I said, if so, they are out there. How come there hasn't been a corpse? Or all these tens of thousands of game cameras everybody's got in the woods now? How have we not got a picture of one?
Right, and that's a $1 million question.
Exactly. So I don't know. I can't answer it. All I know is what I know, and it's happened.
Sure. Yeah. Well, this has been. The encounters you've had has been really, really fascinating. I've enjoyed having you on, and I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Oh man, I was more than happy to do it, Mark. I'm glad it worked out, buddy.
Me too. At the end, typically I ask my guest. It's called rapid fire Q&A.
Yeah.
I've got 3 questions for you, and the first thing that comes to your mind when I ask you the question. You ready, Carl?
Yeah. Go ahead.
All right. What's your favorite movie?
Favorite movie? Oh, Lord. Tombstone.
Tombstone. Oh, good one. That's the one with Kurt Russell and Val Kilmer.
Man, they don't get no better than that one.
That's a good one. All right. This is going to be a pretty easy question, I guess. Auburn or Alabama?
Oh, my son went to Auburn. I got family who lives in Opelika. Where we hunted at, Mark, back in the glory days, when they would score a touchdown, we could hear them over there from our deer camp.
Yes.
It didn't get no better anymore. My son, talking about that, my son had a full ride to Troy, but he was born and raised in them woods down there in Auburn, and that's where I sucked it up, and that's where he went to school and got his bachelor's and his master's.
Right. Great. That's a great town too to grow up in or to visit. So
yeah. Super nice people down there.
Yep. All right, last question. Favorite outdoor hobby?
It's my favorite outdoor hobby. I just got into it. It will be a year in February, Mark. One of the guys that lives up here sent me a text out of the blue, and he said, oh, by the way, before people had to pay for leases and they put trespassing signs and stuff up, I want to show you what come off your property when me and my buddies used to roam the woods. And he sent me a bunch of pictures of artifacts, arrowheads, spearheads, you name it. And long story short, February the 24th, I think, I found my first arrowhead on our property.
Oh, that's cool.
Up with it right now. I've got an old gun case converted into a trophy case here in the cabin, and I probably got, counting the brokes and the good ones, I've got over 100 heads already.
Oh, that's awesome. That sounds like that's good way to pass time.
But you're digging under overhangs, and you're sifting in the creeks, and you're just out there enjoying nature, and man, you just don't know what you're going to pull up in that shovel. That
is pretty cool. That's pretty neat.
I've got pottery right now that if you put them to your face and sniff them, you can still smell the campfire from them.
Oh, that's neat.
But
really neat.
Artifact hunting, that's it now.
A lot of history there. Yep. Well, I appreciate you coming on, Carl. And maybe we can do this another time, or we can get together with someone else that has an encounter or sighting or something.
I'll do it, Mark.
Okay. And for all you listeners, if you've had an experience or an encounter or something unexplainable, shoot me an email with your contact information at the Cryptid Crew Podcast at gmail.com. Like, share, and subscribe. It helps the channel out. Thank you for listening, and God bless.